Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special Andy and Marty Make a Friend. Look at this.
We're already doing it.
We're doing it. Friend made. We're done.
Nice.
So
Shortest
easy.
stream, I think.
This is so easy. That's how you do a speed run, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Good stream. See everybody Wednesday.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Andy and Marty Make a Friend. We may or may not end up making the friend you see before you this episode. If not this episode, it will be next episode, which will be next Monday.
Yep.
But basically, we're going to talk about the World of Darkness, character creation, kind of a little history, and Marty's going to kind of take us through all of this stuff because he was there.
Well,
you were playing games and such.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I've been there for most of it.
Yes.
I think first edition Vampire is the only one that I didn't play. But yeah, so yeah, White Wolf explains just about everything good and bad about my style of role playing. Like it once. It is how. I mean, I came up with D&D like everybody else at the time, and then as soon as I found this, I was like, "See you later, scrubs." Now I'm cooking with vampires or whatever. And it's because the thing I want to convince everyone of, if nothing else, is that this character creation system owns. Like, it is just the best, most versatile, top-down. I love it so much. You can do literally anything. There's no character you can't create. And once you start plugging in setting details, vampire. Once you start plugging in the pretty rad story drops that they give you, you'll want to play it forever. A couple caveats up top. I did work for White Wolf briefly, but I worked there because I loved it. I don't love it because I worked there. That was much, much later. We're going to be... I don't even think anything we're going to touch on will deal with my time while I was there. And they went through several iterations. And again, the first, like, when they opened up, they were basically a company that made a weird magic game called Ars Magica. And then they stumbled across, what if we just made an Anne Rice simulator? And if we do that, will people come? And it turns out, yes, you will dominate role-playing games for about 15 to 20 years. TSR Who, you will just move everybody else aside and be like, you'll have your own TV show. You'll be Richard Garfield's second game. Well, listen, it wasn't a good TV show. But Aaron Spelling put his name on your TV show. Those crappy Underworld movies ripped us off.
I'm not saying there isn't a good TV show to be made there. I'm just saying that one. I watched a trailer for it. It
was so disappointing. No. But yeah, so like the basic game was, hey, which of 7 kinds of vampires do you want to play? And they were mostly archetypical, except for the one that was just a holdover from their Ars Magica game, the Tremere. Although they kind of get into the weird alchemy and like weird kind of like, what if you could make yourself a vampire kind of ideas? But I wouldn't call them widespread. And so it just like, you want to play a Lost Boy? Here's the Bruja. You want to play basically outdoor Dracula? Here's the Gangrel. You want to go ahead.
Yeah. This was one of the things I wanted to talk about. Actually, the Twilight books / movies have a very pretty good example of a gangrel. Like 2 of the characters they're kind of outdoorsy, very huntery, and Victoria and I can't remember the other one's name. Those movies are very fun to watch. They're not good.
Fantastic.
But if it is fascinating to me as someone who has quote like never read vampire literature or whatever, how much Stephanie Meyer's clearly like absorbed some kind of vampire, because there's the Camarilla and the Sabbat in
the
Twilight
I don't know
books.
Much about those books, but I know that there is essentially a Camarilla and Sabbat in there.
And to be clear, Darth Jiggles, I'm not trying to give Stephanie Meyer's any credit. Those books are reductive and harmful. Those movies are hysterical.
Yeah, I think eventually everyone was just losing their mind making them, so they may as well have fun.
Michael Sheen is just chef's kiss balls to the
right.
wall,
He's in there.
chewing scenery. I call him Laugh and Clap because he does this bizarre laugh and clap in one of this. Like, it's just, there are really good actors in there in a Twilight movie. They're just stuck in a Twilight movie.
Yeah. Which is why I don't think that what's his name really deserved a lot of the dislike they got, because they just signed up for what might have been the next Harry Potter, and it just turns out it sucked.
Yeah. And I mean,
and it turns out the first Harry Potter has not aged well.
No.
Thanks, Joanne. Thanks
a lot. Anyway, I'm sorry. You were listing archetypical vampires.
Yeah. So then you have like the kind of, at the time, very problematic, and it took them a while to get better, that basically insanity or madness kind of contained this kind of wisdom. You can play that one guy from Diary of the Vampire. You know that guy? I think he gets cut in half. Nosferatu, if you want to play knockoff Dracula and do like a bunch of body horror, hideousness kind of stuff. You could play Ponzi socialite Republican nightmare vampires, or you can play aristocratic landowner Democratic nightmare vampires, and the Tremere for some reason. And again,
got my wizard knocked up with my vampire.
Yeah. And again, that was more or less it was fan fiction from their own previous game. But like, even original, like basically it was play any of these Anne Rice characters you want. But because of that, it still like had very much this emphasis where you basically, and this will be a theme going forward, is that there is always at least a dualistic character creation. Because you created the person you were, and then the vampire you are. And sometimes those things contradict. Sometimes if you've been alive long enough, you've been more than one vampire over that time, because, in the Civil War, you backed the wrong side. So now you pretend like you didn't, in a modern era. And you have literally all of history to play with. Now, when you're first starting, they basically suggest you be, low-level recent embracees or whatever. But that's boring. You're boring. I want to be a Revolutionary War hero or whatever. So it as a character creation system, it really makes you think of like, well, what period of history do I want to be from? What kind of person do I want to have been? What kind of vampire? Like, what did I do to attract a vampire's attention? And then what kind of vampire? Which of these 7 or later 13 vampires did I want to attract, and why? What did I do to get their attention? And even there, like the Brujas is probably the most basic, and they're all a bunch of street toughs and rebels or whatever. Like each clan basically has like one or two central tenets that you can kind of wrap them up in. And the Brujas are rebels, right? That's kind of their big thing. Or they used to be rebels and now they're rabble, is kind of the de-evolution of the clan or whatever. But okay, what's a rebel? What is it to rebel? What time period were you from, and what were you rebelling against? Were you a woman who wore pants on TV for the first time? Someone embrace Mary Tyler Moore right now. Or are you, like, you can play against type, where, like, one of my favorite Bruja that I never got to play she was an undercover cop, like, in a gang. Like, she was kind of, like, put there. She was deep cover. And then she did some amazing shit when there was this kind of gang war, and then this vampire's like, man, you got it. You are everything, like, I want. So they basically embrace this cop who could not be any less of a rebel, because in fact she's the status quo, but here she is now stuck between all these worlds or whatever. So like infinitely, like you can just upend the entire toy box, and everything starts concept first, which I think is the coolest thing about it. And like I said, it's going to kind of explain how I approach everything, ever since these games, because I've now created exactly one D&D character where I created race and class, right? I'm never trying to combine or do builds. I'm not trying to. I always wanted to try like a paladin or something like that. I need to come up with, who is this person? What do they want? What are they doing? What's all the trash fires that are inside of them? What kind of fantasy mom issues do they have? And then go from there and be like, oh, I think they're a paladin. And that's been trained in me, because all of White Wolf games, you can play literally anything. So you best start with, let's start with, what do I want to play? And you can certainly be like, I want to play a Bruja with Potence 3. It's not like it's above that level of thinking. It's not above, like, I want to play an Osprey-led Malkavian or whatever. Like, you can still build that. It's just, even when you do that, if 3 people created Osprey-built Malkavians, you would probably still end up with 3 very distinctly different characters based on how you got there. If you wanted to play 3 Brujas with Potens, you'd probably be a little similar, but even just, like, your background, your class, like literally your class in society and stuff, would probably flavor it just enough. Where then, yeah, actually, you'd have a pretty cohesive game. You'd just be a street gang. You wouldn't be very diverse when it came to solving problems. You're going to punch it, probably. My guess is you're punching it. Or tearing something off and hitting someone with it. You can do that.
Hold on. Why aren't we
Creativity.
talking about that option?
Huh? Throwing sewer lids now.
Throwing a person at another person. Let's think about it.
Now you're thinking with vampires. So, and they brought this to basically, again, it was an Anne Rice simulator. That did really well, and they had some problematic elements. So they kind of immediately came out with like a second edition where they expanded into just this mind-blowing lore. Like, the vampire creation myth to modern day is still one of my favorite metafictions, like, that I've ever participated in. This idea that Cain, as in brother of Abel, was the first vampire, because when God cursed him to be like, hey, you can't just murder people. And you're going to know by walking the earth forever, like literal Cain from Kung Fu. And then, like, he builds a city and embraces and loves and gets betrayed. And, like, these 13 little bastard children are out there, and they create these entire lines that dominate, like, different cultural beliefs, different geographical regions, like... there's my favorites who don't even believe they're vampires. No, we're children of God. Yeah, it's weird. We understand. No, you're vampires. Yes. And no, we do. Yeah, we drink blood. Yeah, we can't go out in the sun. Yeah, we're afraid of fire. We're children of God, though. No, I know. It's confusing.
What you said was stupid.
What you said is stupid.
What I'm saying makes sense.
Yeah. This guy, egg on his face. So yeah, like, just so beautifully built. I mean, even in that first edition, which I didn't play much of, there was that kind of core concept. And something I want to touch on, so I may as well do it here. The tagline was kind of like mature role-playing game, and by that they do kind of mean like, look, you're going to need a certain level of maturity to really get the most out of these games. Trust me, though, I was a teenage dirtbag. We played plenty of dumb things. But it does kind of lend itself well to that kind of thing. But also the tagline to especially Vampire was a storytelling game of personal horror. And I really like that, because I do not like horror, broadly speaking. I did when I was a teenage dirtbag, probably a little bit more. But, like, I don't love the horror genre, which... made it really hard to write for them sometimes because especially my one editor really wanted horror tropes everywhere, and I was just kind of like, yeah, but they're played out and boring, and this part's hilarious. I just wrote this really funny thing. Did not like that. But the personal horror is, at some point, even if you try to create the bestest boy, which, Andy, I know you would try.
I'll do it right now.
We all try. There are systems in place where eventually you are still a person who drinks blood. That is your primary food source. You have to be a monster. The other tagline is monster you are, less monster you become. You have to, like, even if you're good, you probably want to lean into it a little bit. You are still a predator, like a literal predator. And that's like, going to be...
the best predator.
Oh, yeah. An apex predator. Yeah. If only we had a name for them.
No.
And so it also requires a certain amount of maturity for that. And, you know, this is all before, like, veils and lines and things like that. And so you want to be with a group you trust, or you want to establish those things pretty early on, because these things are naturally creepy.
Yes.
And they're going to aggravate someone. It was a different time then, but even they pretty early on started building things. Like, if someone says stop, you should stop immediately. If someone, you know, and this is kind of the lines and veils things of, like, if someone would rather you kind of fade to black on your weird, like, you've been stalking this girl for an hour and it feels really weird now that we've gotten this deep in the weeds for it or whatever, like, then you should do that. But you are, just through what you are going to be a monster at some point. You can try to always feed from animals. Well, animal blood's not as good. And so you're still always going to be, there's this system called the beast, which is inside of you. It's not a literal demon. They didn't go that route with it, but there's something rattling its cage in you all the time. And so at any point, if you're hungry, you might freak out and just eat whoever's close to you. You might attack your friends. You might do anything. So even if you try and be the bestest boy, there is a chance that the system steps in and is like, you can't be the best boy anymore. You went too long without feeding, and you are going to devour, like a bus stop's worth of people.
No one's going to notice.
No one's going to notice.
I'm sure that won't be a plot line.
Mm-mm. And then what stops you from being a monster all the time is this thing called the Masquerade, hence Vampire the Masquerade, which is if people knew you were there, it would make your job a whole lot harder. And eventually, it's pitchforks and torches all over the place. They've even built it historically in the setting. There was pitchforks and torches all over the place, which is part of why they embrace, no pun intended, this kind of lifestyle. But so like it's inbuilt that you're kind of handcuffed, that you can't just go around being a badass vampire doing badass vampire stuff unless you play the spot. And even then, they're full of shit. They don't do that. But there's constantly this monster inside of you that's just kind of like, let's get just badass vampire shit. Don't let that fucking sheep talk to you like that. Just tear out his throat. He's so poncy.
Just a little.
Just a little. Just a little throat. He can have most of it. You just want to have some of it.
And just for now, you're just borrowing.
Just for now. Yeah, I remember I played a demo at like Lehigh University. And my friends at the time, they had played it before, so they were a little bit more familiar with it. And it was first edition. It was the only first edition I ever played. And I remember my buddy, who is cute and cuddly as the Dickens. Like, this was just the nicest person I've ever seen. And I remember, like, he was a gangrel, I think. So they're the animalistic kind of Draculas. Before they actually added real Draculas. And, like, it's about feeding time. We all have to do something. I think he had spent a bunch of blood doing something. Because that's basically your whole commodity. Is you're always spending blood to power all your rad vampire stuff, but then you need more blood to keep powering your rad vampire stuff. And so, like, he summoned this kitten out of the darkness using animalism or whatever. And it's like, that's sweet. This is nice. That's a cool thing that you can do. Is he going to eat the kitten? Because that's a little weird, but whatever. No, he snaps the kitten's leg so that he can then attract some woman trying to get into her apartment. Like, oh no, this kitten's leg is broken. Can I please come into your apartment and fix this kitten? And yeah, it was just kind of like, holy shit. We're not going to be nice in this game, are we? Like, this is a terrible, terrible time. And it's the best. It is the best. I can't play D&D without wanting to be good. I won't play anything sub-neutral. It does not interest me. I want to be a good guy in that setting. Just watch me play Vampire and find out the hideous monster I truly am. That game of Avalon or whatever we played, Andy.
Yep, I was just about to say.
That is the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, no.
Shit I can do. Because that's, like, D&D naturally brings you together, right? You're a group. You have group-focused goals. Even if it's get all the gold. Or if one of you has a separate track line, it's, I'm very gold-motivated. We're not, or whatever. Like, there might be a little bit of internal struggle, but it's not going to be a bunch. Vampire has to, like, find reasons to force you to be together in the first place. And even that doesn't last, because you will sell each other out for a nickel if it means mildly impressing your sire a little bit more or something like that. And you are encouraged to go, like, to have all your own goals and motivations that, which also gets back to this this thing that very much speaks to my style. And I think we mostly saw it in the Stars Without Number game that we were doing, which is sitting there and watching another person play for an hour was just common. You'd sketch or you'd do something else and you'd just be a fan of each other. And I think it's such an important role-playing exercise. Even if you don't dig the rest of it, watching someone else just play their character, and then it's your turn to play your character. And then maybe your character and another character link up to do something, but then you both split together. But plus you can also get, like, all these great dramatic irony moments where you know that this person's coming to stab you in the back, but you don't know that they're doing that. You, the player, knows that they're doing that. You, the character, has to go along with this idea that they're trying to stab you in the back. And you have to hope you notice, or you also have some scheme to stab them in the back before they stab you in the back. It's nuts. It's beautiful. It's... I can't speak well enough of it. And it's all concept-led. It's all this kind of dualistic character creation in a rad meta setting where you can't help but be literal monsters. It's... Yeah, I don't like horror in the way that, like, I don't know, Saw's, Final Destinations, I don't know, whatever else is popular with kids. What I do love is examining the depths of what would this, little Romani girl do 500 years, or 50 years past her shelf life, constantly paranoid and on the run. Like, what would this person who's trying to keep their shit together, but their enemies keep getting closer and closer to them? Like, what will you do? And again, you need a good group for that. That cannot be understated, I think.
Sure.
Again, it's interesting to me how little I think probably early White Wolf stuff is probably aged. And it was aging badly then. Like, there was a lot of, like, posts on all your RPG nets or whatever. There was the somewhat famously rather ugly book that is basically a racial slur that immediately did not age well. But, for instance, the Vistani are also trying to do something very similar to what they were trying to do, and that also has not aged very well recently. So, or it probably was never aging well. Recently, it's become an issue that they fixed.
Yes.
But yeah, like, again, the Madness stuff was very ableist. Probably the Nosferatu stuff, some of it was very ableist.
Sure.
But some beer, some pretzels, a couple good friends, and trying to stab each other in the back. It was a good time. And the character creation, which will continue to be, I will continue to highlight it, but I really want to get into how they started building on it before we get into it. But you create your human first. And eventually they literally codified that. When they made a whole new system, they actually sold a book where you make the human. And then you can plug the vampire or the werewolf or whatever onto them. But you make a person and then add this skin to them, which is that they're some kind of supernatural being who is always one bad argument away from being a true monster. And then there was Mage.
Crap, I had a question.
Was it who's my favorite? It's the Sethites. Except for when it's the Toreador.
Well, do you want to kind of talk about the clans at all, or like save that, like even a quick overview of them, or like what makes the lore so interesting to you? Oh, I remember what it was, but we can answer that now. But what I was going to say was, I also don't like horror, but like you, I like Gothic horror, especially because it is always personal. The best Gothic horror is a reflection of it. The monsters are reflections of people, and that makes it interesting. In Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein is the monster, not Adam. Right. Yes, Adam. Yeah. Adam is also a monster. He kills people. But the whole point is that
he didn't ask for this.
He didn't ask for it, and everyone was mean to him. He learned French for them. They screamed at him.
It's literally the lingua franca. What do you people want?
Nothing's good enough. I guess I'll have to go to the Arctic and snap a little girl's neck or whatever.
Yeah. I think you have the order reversed, but that's fine.
Yeah. But it's why I like World of Darkness stuff, is it's all personal. Like, there is also creepy, scary. The Zamichi are creepy and scary in body horror.
Yeah.
And there is violence and that kind of horror as well, but because you're creating that person first, and there's a lot of introspection, which is the kind of horror I like.
Yeah, and it's very much, I always try and hold on to the fact that vampires are just people pretending to be vampires, right? Like, because they were people first, they got embraced, and even 200 years later, they are barely holding on. They are pretending, and they are with the ultimate social predators, so everyone's pretending at the highest fucking level, and anyone can snap, or, you've got Toreador can cut you down, and it takes you 2 generations to get over it. Like, it was such a sick burn. Like, the Ventru can literally buy your haven out from under you, and you're homeless. You have about 6 good hours of darkness before you should probably find... I wouldn't use cardboard, and I wouldn't go in the sewers. That's Nosferatu's. You're fucked, bud. you know, like there's so many ways that you can kind of like push and pull, and each clan has their own thing that they're particularly good at and have their strengths and weaknesses. And yeah, it's infinitely recurring interestingness, in my opinion. And yeah, like, and again, I always try and be the human who's barely holding on. You know, even I have played some, you know, super put together, you know, super monsters or whatever. But even then, I always try, and somewhere beneath that, they're full of shit. Like, they are terrified of everyone else around them, because you have to be. Everyone is also a predator. It's like going to a serial killer convention. You know, like, everyone here is just as terrifying as you, if not more.
And most people around you immediately benefit if you're dead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like
immediately.
Like, either because they can just absorb all your stuff. There's one less predator in the city. If you're older than them and they eat you, they become more powerful. And obviously there are vampire laws against this.
Yes.
But what's that?
No, but yeah, it's more meat for the meat eaters. If you're younger and took that person down, they're probably gonna be like, this person's got a lot of spunk. I like to see where they're going. If an older vampire took you out, no one's saying boo to them. I'm just kind of like, oh shit, all right, well, don't piss off Dad, I guess. Cool. I always thought they sucked, sire. I said that on the ride over. I was like, that person sucks, and I hope our sire kills them for no reason in front of us, really capriciously. Right? Why are you shaking your head? Oh God, I'm next. You know, like, yeah, like this, like the slow levels of paranoia. You can't trust fucking anyone. And again, that's not everyone's game. I get it, but like the delight, as I just remember some of the awful things we did to each other, was just fantastic. You know, just put a mouse in someone's pocket and watch a bunch of vampires freak out. Or no, I gave you a mouse, right?
You did, yes.
Yes.
So I've played twice. Marty's story.
Yes.
Story told for me. I've played a Malkavian and a Nosferatu, and both times I very much enjoyed myself. But yeah, it's when I was the Malkavian, my sire locked me in a box that I had to get out of. And then as soon as I got out of, and I was starving, I had to roll a d10 to see how much blood I had. And then my sire just hands me a mouse, and that was like the question or so. And I was just, I had to figure out what to do with the mouse, and I made my willpower save.
Yes, you did not eat the mouse.
I did not eat the mouse, and I don't know if that was the right or wrong thing to do, and I don't think I was told whether it was the right or wrong thing to do.
Nah, man. The important thing is you find your own way.
Yeah. It's not helpful. That's not actually helpful.
And you can just create a vampire from any time. And like when the hippies were big, so now there's a bunch of hippie vampires out there. There's a bunch of World War II vampires still out there. There's people who have benefited from every awful thing that's happened in history and get to keep doing it out there. You know, there's this idea that all the clans have degenerated to this point of like, in my day we were philosopher kings, and now they're just a bunch of street toughs. And are there 30 of them? You were not supposed to keep embracing each other. Oh my God, you embraced all your friends. I have a problem. I cannot go to the prince with this. Are you kidding me?
But something you said earlier, I've been kind of thinking of, where, you know, you said like if you play a young vampire, then obviously you can't. You know, you're a recent vampire. But what if? And I personally think this is funny. Like, what if you were like staked or something immediately after you were embraced? And you just slept for 300 years, and then you wake up, and now everything's different. There's an internet. What the hell is that? Like, you're from the Revolutionary War, and you're like, the fuck is... We're a country? Well, good, we won. This is the country, though? This is
everyone can read? Shit. Yeah, oh, for sure.
Well, as long as the women don't have the vote yet. What?
What?
For 100 years?
That feels too long.
That's way too long.
Oh my God. Yeah, like exactly. Yes, you can be a 13th generation or whatever. You don't have to spend any points in generation, because if your line just advanced really fast. And again, that's why, like, again, they're all my favorite. If you give me a minute and are just kind of like, well, the La Sombra, though, I'll be like, oh, the La Sombra, fucking La Sombra. You're right. They're my favorite. The Setites aren't my favorite, though. But yeah, like the Toreador are particularly prone to just kind of like, I like this girl. She's pretty. She's my forever girl now. And, like, there's no telling that girl earned her forever time. Like, right? In, like, 5 minutes, you realize that she is insufferable, and that whole pretty thing is not going to be enough. Go ahead.
So I've been thinking a lot about vampire lately, because we've been talking about this, and I thought of Yeah, just like musical Toreador who embrace like musicians who are immediately going to like their style is just out like so like
immediately
like some some Atlantic City crooner who gets embraced and then 50 years later we're gonna bring back that swing. It's like no we're not. Yeah. No we're not, Joe.
Listen, your sire was a real asshole, and I'm sorry, but it's not coming back.
Don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing.
The amount of mistakes, like Gangrel are just prone to being like, I found this camper. They seemed canny. And I don't follow no rules. So I embraced them. Now they're a real pain in the ass, actually. They don't know anything.
They were doing something called glamping, and I didn't know that.
I didn't know. The Bruja, like, again, they have this great tradition of being these kind of, like, they're rebels, like they're revolutionaries, like they're these like deep-seated things. So again, they tend to be the public face of them now, this kind of degeneration of the clan, is that they're street gangs anymore. Because that's kind of what rebellion looks like now. They're punks. Like, I mean, they're basically the cover of the book, right? Like they're the kind of gothic punk like thing. But the thing I always loved about that, which is why they always end up being anarchs and stuff like that. There's a couple factions, we can talk about them more if we want to, but the idea is you embrace this like lieutenant who's like, this guy's got a good head on his shoulders. He's going somewhere. Like, I like this kid. He's proven that he's more than just the whole pride thing. I think he really has something to say. And he can convert the rest of his people. And I've got like a little army that I can motivate against the prince or burn down some stuff. I'm sorry, you embraced your brother? Well, yeah. Me and my brother, we always do everything together. Okay, you can't. Okay, well, you can't just do that. So long as it's just. Well, he embraced his girlfriend. Fuck. Okay, so long as it's just that. When she embraced her two friends, because they thought it was unfair. Unfair? Are you fucking? This is eternity. This is the kiss of eternity. It's a big deal, actually. Shit. How many of there are you? 30 at last count. Fuck. I have a problem. Like again, like that whole idea of, or again, a Toreador. You embrace someone who's like, immediately a poseur, right? Like they're just immediately out of style, or someone who never had it in the first place. Well, then, they embrace someone because they think they're pretty, because the Toreador are just idiots. Like, they're, just any bird fascinated with its own image.
Sure.
So they embrace some pretty person who then embraces someone else that they think, because now they all think that this is just the way you do things. And, like, there are clans that are better at it than that, but, like, are you telling me Ventrue don't have, like, 3 mistresses they embraced that they're just not telling each other about? Like, oh my God. People are idiots. And add eternity to it, and it's the best game you've ever played.
Think about how many times you've talked yourself into an idea that you know is stupid, but now you have 1,000 years to do it.
1,000 years. And most people can't tell you not to do it. Oh my God, it's amazing. Because I've got a whole werewolf riff. Or we can keep on vampire and try and keep it focused, and we can talk more about clans and societies and stuff like that. Where do you want to go?
I'm good with either. I know the most about vampire, so if you want to talk about vampire, we can talk about it a little bit. If you want to just talk about werewolf, I'll learn about werewolf. I'm good with whatever.
Well, there's plenty more to say about vampire, so let's stay here for now, and either at the end of the stream or next week, if we come back, I can talk more about werewolf, because. Okay. That whole dualism of create the person, create the vampire, including however many ages you've been alive, might recreate you every decade or so. Werewolf actually introduces like all these different like variables that every werewolf is immediately different. But all right, so vampires have been around since the Bible, since the first book of the Bible, right? Taken as more or less a historical record to a certain degree. Every age in history has had some big rise and fall, and every vampire's been behind everything. And it's funny because they both promote that as the metafiction, but also are like, vampires haven't been behind everything that's happened in history. Oh yeah? Prove it, you liars. Everything you do, there's this kind of like, and that was the Malkavian. Which is great. I love that part about it. This kind of shadow society that's always manipulating these events. So you get to play whatever conspiracy theory you want can just be true, and it was a Ventrue plot to kill Robert Kennedy or whatever.
Because Rasputin's canonically a vampire, and he's maybe a Malkavian, but maybe not. I can't remember. I knew
it would be hard to say because every clan book claimed Rasputin is one of them.
I knew there was a fun story with Rasputin.
Yes. Yes, Rasputin is a Bruja, a Gangrel, I think he started as he was a Malkavian, but then he was a Jamishi, but then he was a Tremere, but then eventually the joke became
Yeah.
every clan claims him.
And he kind of fits all of them. Like,
Yes.
like all the ones you listed, like, yeah, no, he's a rabble rouser. No, he's a wizard. He's kind of an unhinged seer.
Yeah. He's a man who climbed into the aristocracy, so he could be a venturer from low birth, but, who got himself into a position of power. That dude, like, controlled a czar through his wife. Like, that's pretty boss. But, yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like, originally you kind of start with these stereotypes of kind of like, oh, I'm a Bruja, I'm a rebel, so I'm probably like a street tough or something. I'm a bar bouncer, and I impress somebody. Which, you could be more creative than that, but I'll take it. But anybody could be anything. Like, a Bruja could just kind of be like, screw it, I just like this kid. He's a musician. He really touched me. I'm passionate. I'm out of my mind, right? Like, that's the Bruja's whole deal, is they can't control their emotions either. They don't get entranced with it the way the Toreador do, but they're very close to people. So, man, I just like that Kurt Cobain kid. So, yeah, I embraced him. Why not? Or Rage Against the Machine. So this music really just fucking blew my mind. I like this guy. A Gangrel of a certain temperament could absolutely be kind of like the old Fiones or whatever, of just kind of like these bard kings who could run through the forest without loosening a single thread from their ponytail, but also play a lyre or whatever, A Malkavian could be mad insightful in music or whatever, and they think that they're communicating, and whenever they play a song, they're actually untapping, the secret laws of the universe. The Toreador are more obvious. The Nosferatu could be the Phantom of the fucking Opera, right? I mean, that's their whole fucking boom. There's that one right away. Like, so you could create, like, just because you're a musician doesn't make you a Toreador. You can do anything. And starting to mix and match and play with those kind of combinations, it's infinite. It's infinite. It's, my God, it's full of stars. Like, this character creation system, it starts small because you're just kind of like, yeah, I'll play a poet. And I really impressed my sire with my rad poetry. And then you can just extrapolate. But what if my sire was a Malkavian and they think my rad poetry is actually some coded message that they're receiving from Malkav itself? Like, you can immediately start twisting these things on their turn. And that's what, like, and that's basically how they went through editions. In first edition, you were pretty much the stereotypes. In second edition, they blew it open to kind of be like, hey, yeah, you could be a street tough, but you could also be like a Bruja lawyer who, like, is a PD or whatever, right? You take on all these cases and help kids out and stuff like that. And people thought you were a pillar of the community. Like, you don't need to be this. So once they started blowing the doors open on some of these clans, it literally went so that it could be anything. And I will try and keep when I was there, stories to a minimum, but that was how I was instructed, of kind of like, if you give them one example, they think you can be that thing. If you give them two examples, they think you can be either of those things. If you give them three examples, they understand they can be anything. Like, so that was always kind of like, if you were going to put in story seeds, or if you were going to put in like character types or whatever, try and keep it to at least a rule of threes, where it became clear you weren't setting up a single or a binary, you were setting up, you can be anything you want. And again, by the time they were doing revised and V20 and whatever, it's like, you can literally be anything you want. You want to be a Jamishi gang member? Go for it. Like, you're going to be terrifying, by the way.
Oh, the scariest.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I really liked about the V20 supplement, Lore of the Clans, is it does a nice little condensed history. It tells you about your disciplines and all that stuff, but then it has character concepts, and a lot of them are, there's the traditional one, but then, for Bruja, there's a philosophy professor. You were philosophy king. You were philosopher kings. Like, you're debate club captain. Like, you don't have to be the street. You don't have to be a biker. You can be a guy in a suit who made a compelling case, and now, well, we need you to make a compelling case for our cause for the rest of time.
Yeah.
Because,
fuck the venture. Aristotle was the rabble rouser, right? Like, didn't they kill Socrates, like, for corruption of the youth or whatever? Like, so, yeah, like, absolutely. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about Vampire Society. We've kind of just watched me get excited like a dog every 4 minutes over some other thing I'd forgotten. And we can talk about all the clans, because all the clans are rad. Again, they're all my favorite. But
I,
all right,
I am in a similar boat where like I have like 5 favorites, and
Yeah.
they're all different favorites from yours, which is great.
yeah. So, all right. So basically, at a certain point in history, like there was no society. It was basically vampires were everywhere, and they were doing their own thing. As the walls of humanity, as humanity spread more and more, it got tighter and tighter to the point where if you were on the same block as another vampire, people were going to notice because now 2 people went missing in the same, mile. So they started needing rules, and they kind of started doing like domain things in very classic Predator styles of just kind of like, no, this is my pissing box. That's your pissing box. You can. And let me see, was the Anarch Revolt before the Inquisition? I think so, because I think that's what got humans to be like, enough. We've all pretended not to notice your asses in the shadow for too long, and we're staking you, all of you.
I don't drink red wine. You're clearly a vampire.
You're a vampire. Who else would say that? Why would you pause so weirdly long on red wine?
It's
this fucking creep.
You're obviously drinking blood. I get it.
Yeah, it's too thick to be. It's leaving a stain.
Just because I can't read doesn't mean I'm not an idiot.
But and the Catholic Church was a pretty big deal. And no matter whichever vampire tries to claim credit for the Catholic Church, I always like that they are too big an animal to control. So the Lasombra are just like, they're ours. They're coming. That's a torch. Okay, we gotta go. I told you we should have killed that Jesus dude. I told you. You were like, yeah, whatever. What harm can he do? He's probably a Bruja anyway. So, also petty vampires. I know you've been watching a lot of What We Do in the Shadows, but there is no part of history that I can't put a petty vampire in the middle of it and crack myself up immediately.
Yep. And that is why that show is so funny. They have eternity to be petty.
Mm-hmm. But so, and every empire rose and fell. Like Carthage was the Brujas, Rome was the Malkavian and the Ventru. The Toreador were Croatian Greece and things like that. At the high time of vampires, where they were basically unchallenged, and they didn't spread the blood out too thin, they got to be kind of like emperor kings everywhere they wanted. You were never the one on the throne. You were the one who put people on the throne, and thus you kind of by proxy, which is the great metaphor behind the card game, which we talked about. You talked a little bit about a week or 2 ago. But so eventually they were kind of like, look, we need rules. And if we're being honest, we've been a little out of control. So let me see if I can get there first. Because first, the Onyx Revolt. So all vampires, there was Risen Cain. He embraced 3 children. Those 3 children embraced 13 total between themselves. And they became the 13 clans. They were like the 13 archetypical vampires that, like, their blood is so powerful, their power was so powerful that they were able to shape reality to anyone they embraced was more like them than anybody else. The Nosferatu are cursed. The Setites think that they're a god. Because the level of power they were all dealing with was like that. And eventually, sometime in... Man, I'm trying to remember when the Anarch Revolt is. I want to say it's about the 1300s or so, but that feels late. This might have been the 800s. But at a certain point, like, the problem with vampire society, especially when it's so free-form like that, is there's not a lot of room for promotions. Your boss is going to hold his position for fucking ever, it turns out. Oh, how much longer does he have? Oh, forever? Okay, cool. When does he get a watch? Oh, it's never from now. It's half past never from now. Cool. I can never advance in this area. I either have to fuck off, or I'm just going to have to accept, like, eating his scraps for the rest of my days. So some of the more ambitious clans start to be like, oh, kind of fuck that, though, right? What if we took these bastards down and start creating opportunities for ourselves? So there's a couple clans that kind of start this youth movement that are kind of like, yeah, I think we can take a shot at the fucking king. I think we can go in there, eat Jamishi his own self, and boom. Then we're Jamishi, right? We're all Jamishi then. My favorite thing about that is Metatextually over the editions, it basically turns out that of like the 5 to 6 antediluvians, which are the original vampires, those original 13 vampires, out of all of them, I think like approximately 0 of them are actually dead because that's how fucking powerful they are.
Right.
Like that's I love that. That freaks me out more than anything else. I think that's so great. If anything, maybe original Brujas dead, I think, is the only one that I think there's enough of a case. And it's based on the fact that once you die, everyone in your bloodline goes fucking nuts, as proven by the Ravnos in later days. I'm skipping ahead.
The Weekend Nightmares or whatever it's called.
But, because the Jimishi don't all go nuts. And that's because in the canonical story of them storming and killing Jimishi, Jimishi gets the fuck away, and it's great. I think that's Lombok's story, right?
Okay, so, sorry, because I was just listening to somebody talk about this. But Jimishi flesh crafts a duplicate of himself that they find, like, on a hook. And they're like, great, Zimishi's dead. Like, we did it, everybody. They all drink him. He's like, well, that was great, even though we should be way more powerful than after we just drank an antediluvian. And Lombok looks up, and Zimishi's just like, you're going to be my good little boy. Shh.
Yeah, because Lombok is kind of just a nobody. He's good at Ospe. That's his deal. He's a psychic. And everyone else is like this, I can peel my flesh off and make a second me. I can turn my own bones into, like, claws and things like that. I'm a living raptor. What do you want that you wish is bird? You want bird? I make you bird. I make you a bird. I make him a bird. I make everyone a bird. I make 3 birds out of my own arm. You know, like, that's their whole weird body horror thing. So, yeah, they organize this strike force to go take down the clan elder themselves. And they're going to get the jump on them, and they're probably sleeping right now, because the older you get, the more you kind of have to lay down. And they only bring Lombok along because he has sight beyond sight, right? He's just a super good psychic. He has none of these other... He doesn't even want to do this. He just want to be here today. Like, and so they storm the castle, and Jimishi's onto it, because these guys are gods. They're vampire gods. You know, a la your Queens of the Damned or whatever. If you are an Anne Rice fan, you can kind of draw your analogs to where they were taking some of this stuff from or whatever. But, like... So Jimishi just basically kind of, like, seeps out of his own body, leaving a body-liking thing behind. And it's got enough antediluvian blood in it. Everybody feels a rush when they drink it. They're kind of like, yeah, fuck yeah! All right, we did it, the kegger. And then Lombok is the only one who's just kind of like, well, I guess we did it, yay. And yet he looks over into a corner where Jimishi is drinking the guy who led this revolt against him and just tells him, shh, drinks him dead, and then disappears. And Lombok's like, oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no, but times 1,000 forever. Shit. So, yeah, he just lives as constantly paranoid. He's one of the most powerful Jimishi left around because he's so old, and he lives in pants-shitting terror at all times. It's amazing because he knows somewhere out there is the guy who knows that I know he did it. Shit. Shit. Oh, God. Yeah, Lombok is one of the greats. But, so, yeah, the Jimishi are kind of like, fuck yeah, we're doing this. They take down their elder. The Lasombra are like, fuck yeah, we're doing this. They take down their elder. Let's see. The Bruja are kind of unrelated because I actually think they did theirs in, like, prehistory. Like, I think Troila takes out the original Bruja guy, like, well before that. It's unrelated. And which is part of why the Bruja are immediately kind of like, nope. We're already in trouble. Nobody likes that. We're going to go ahead and join this Camarilla group. So a bunch of these people, this youth revolt, this becomes this anarch revolt. It becomes this anarch movement, which will soon become a different thing. Anarch now means something different than it did then. Because what was an anarch then, which is these people who are just kind of like, fuck the elders. And it wasn't just like the antediluvians. It was anyone older than us needs to be in a fucking bag. They've been in the way too long. They've had it too good for too long, and they're all getting out of here. So this kind of youth revolt takes place. And so a bunch of these clans and the people who are inspired by them start being like, yeah, and you know what? We're fucking vampires. Remember the back in the day where we just ran, you know, we sat on actual, like, thrones of bone and crap, and people had to bring us stuff, and we were in art and poetry and stuff? Yeah, we should get back to that. That's going to be a big mistake. So when they start acting the fool like that, because they're all juiced up on antediluvian blood, and they think they run the place, and they start thinking, like, we can just take Paris, probably. What do you guys think? And they're doing another line of antediluvian blood. And that's when people notice. And again, I like that there's always this kind of implication in some of the better, like, fictionalized versions of it. Of people always knew you were there, dum-dums. Like, people don't just show up with holes in their neck. There's like 15 of us in this town. Like, did you think no one noticed? All of our cows died. All of our cows, all of them, from that mysterious holes in the neck plague. Get the fuck out of here. Now, I like the idea that, like, but they figured, like, if they just keep their head down and hopefully you don't eat all of them, then maybe they can live to farm another day. Well, eventually you start acting enough of a fool, and they're all kind of like, okay, no, it's pitchfork time, you know, and it's the Catholic Church time, and it's the Inquisition time, and good.
while vampires are immortal, they aren't unkillable, and aren't unkillable by people.
And there is approximately half to 3/4 of the day that you can't do shit.
Yep.
You are very susceptible to having your house burnt down around you, it turns out. And it's very difficult. Like, you don't just walk around, I think Buffy the Vampire Slayer, they just walked around their tombs all day. Like, no, you have to sleep. You have to sleep. Your body dies every day, basically. So yeah, the Inquisition starts. And it lines up with roughly the Spanish Inquisition. You're probably familiar with it. So the other vampires who were like, hey, thanks, assholes. That real cool. Just had to kill your sires, I guess. Neat. Now the rest of us are holding our bags. The ones that aren't angry at our dads, it turns out. My dad was pretty cool. I had like a pretty, cushy job under the Senate. I got to live under the Senate and make senators do what I wanted. But now, you ever heard of Caligula? Real chill dude, great parties. Now I can't go to them anymore. Great, thanks for that. So I realize there's hundreds of years apart, but you get the idea. So there were people that were kind of like,
they just think Caligula's still a popular reference, right? He's still a common dude.
Nero's still an up-and-coming violinist, am I right? Guy has a future. So they kind of get together and are just kind of like, hey, not cool. We need to form like an actual body and go underground. Like, that's where the masquerade concept comes. And they form the Camarilla. And it's basically the 7 clans that they basically started with. They kind of backed themselves into the fiction. I think it was always kind of there, but not quite fleshed out. Like, the Assamites were just probably horribly racist stereotypes by the time they first get mentioned in the books. The Ravnos probably aren't far behind. The Setzites probably aren't far behind, if we're being honest. All the African clans probably weren't great originally. But, as they started fleshing out their backstory, and they're just kind of like, okay, so now these anarchs go on to become the Sabbat. And the Sabbat are basically like, why shouldn't we be vampires? Why shouldn't we be vampires? People should have to listen to whatever we say. Oh, shit, man, they're coming. Let's be cool. Get in my car. And the Camarilla were just kind of like, hey, here's the deal. We're going to become myths starting tomorrow. There's no such thing as fucking vampires. And anyone we catch acting a vampire in public is going to have to answer to any of our, we'll call them princes. We'll set up an organized government where everyone has to answer to each other. And yes, Sabbat, this looks a lot like our dad's shit that you killed them for, but you know what? It worked, and it keeps us protected. There's kind of protection in this group. So, I like things like the actual original Malkavians are the ones with the Sabbat. The Camarilla Malkavians purge themselves of their madness, or the depths of their madness, their depravities, more to the point, to kind of to get along. Like, we will get along. We promise, if you guys let us in your group, we will get along. Because we also don't want to get burned at the stake, it turns out. Yeah, we're cool with that. And then there's 4 clans on their own who are like, yeah, I don't see myself doing that. Yeah. You guys are dicks. The whole Sabbat, like, weird religion, vampire religion thing you're doing sucks, quite frankly. And we're children of gods, for instance, so we don't want any part of that. And you guys are, like, literally the man. Like, you're playing dress up as, like, all the old people that they managed to kill. I think we're kind of good on them, so long as you don't kill our old guys, because our old guys are cool. So there's 4 clans that are just independent. There's the Sabbat, which are the religious kind of... Like, they have this religious, like, vampiric superiority complex, except, again, not really. They are full of shit, and I always love pointing that out about them, because if they were truly that, they'd be running, like, countries.
Right. And the Camarilla kind of paints them as...
Yeah.
They're all psychos.
Yeah.
Like, they're all totally unhinged, and they're just, they're going to... Any day now, a caravan of Sabbat are going to be coming over the border.
That's right. They're going to come over here with their drugs, and their rapists, and their video games, and their pop music. And all of your children, is that what you want for your children? I don't. I know that. Staring at the Bruja. You need to stop, man. So yeah, there's a whole war between them. Because yeah, the Sabbat hold cities and the trains have to run on time and shit. Like, things have to still operate there. You don't just have mass slaughters and stuff like that on the reg. And then there's also anarchs, which just tend to be younger vampires who want part of neither of them, but aren't a clan presence enough to be able to declare themselves independent. So, and I'll go with the original because we're getting into meta plot if I start switching clans around. But so the Sabbat are led by this Jamishi, which are the weird body horror guys that can tear off their faces if they want, and then put them back on, or turn things into bird. And La Sombra, who kind of are like these Spaniard Catholic kind of creepy, like it's a lot of like old money and darkness because they literally control darkness. La Sombra means the shadow. They literally control the shadows. So they're the two clans that came whole cloth because they killed their elder. Like, right? We killed our antediluvian, join our army. And so representatives of any clan can be Sabbat members. So you basically have the evil version of your clan where they kind of get to play masks off. You know, Toreador make bone flutes out of people and human sculptures and things. Bruja are more unhinged. You know, Malkavians just fully are fucking crazy or whatever. So any clan can be an anti-tribu is what they call themselves, but they're just the Sabbat version of that clan. And again, they're just masks off. Whatever my clan does, I do it to a cartoonishly evil degree. The Camarilla are the ones that I mentioned at the beginning. The Bruja, they're kind of the rebels, the rabble. But they're also like the Bruja you want to have on your side too. Like they're not just iconoclasts, because again, that's not productive. If you wanted to just tear down new buildings, then you could go over and be a Sabbat member. So you want to build. They're union representatives. They're philosophy teachers. They're people who have big thoughts. You know, Crispus Attucks is one of the first guy who got shot at the Boston Massacre is a Bruja because someone saw him and embraced him and kept him alive. The Gangrel historically, who always were kind of like look, I'm going to be in the woods, and you can call me if you need me. Don't need me. That'd be great. But yeah, I have no interest in doing whatever they were doing. The Malkavians, who are kind of like, they tend to be like kind of consultants and viziers, right? Like when they were cool. And in the modern night, they're your kind of creepy aunt who comes in and tells your tea leaves and walks out. The Nosferatu are your sewer dwelling. They're all hideous Count Orlocks. But they live in the sewers, which is where you flush all of your information. So they tend to be your information brokers. They control the flow of information. They're in all the corners where you can't hear the whispers, or where only they're the ones who can hear the whispers. They for sure know what you did. So if you want to be a friend of the Nosferatu pretty quick. That's why princes get them on their sides right quick. The Toreador are, their reputation is they're the Ponzi artists. And artistes and the kind of effete, again, they're your Democrat vampires. Every time a Republican rises into power, vampires come back into fashion because it's all those, I don't know, they're weird and European and they're probably like bisexual and stuff. That's them. You got it. But they're also like, they cultivate the mortal world because they're still rubbing shoulders with those people because they tend to keep great herds. They like the attention. They also like, influence buying and pushing around the attention. The Tremere, I think, just so everyone hates them less, right? Because
they're the worst.
They're the worst, and they killed everyone's favorite antediluvian and still managed to get away with not being in the Sabbat, which I find adorable.
Well, but did they kill him? Is the thing.
No,
and they didn't.
No.
They didn't.
Nope.
I love Salat.
Nope. Salat's amazing. And the Ventru are your traditional, like, they're your Mitch McConnells, they're your Republican vampires. They absolutely are the ones who keep the most control, which doesn't mean that they're always the prince. In fact, I like it when it's a different clan as a prince of a different city or whatever. But if you were going to default make a stock city of vampires, you would make a Ventru prince, probably, because they tend to just naturally draw to that. It's in their blood, it's who they embrace. They're embracing power, aristocratic people who have this kind of eye and edge. And my favorite Ventru archetype, by the way, is someone who's embraced because I need someone to use all these gewgaws. Can you tweet, son? What is that? I need it.
You just need a social media intern?
Yeah. Like, make the computer do it again. I made it do it once and won't do it anymore. What do you mean my password's expired?
How do I wake it from its slumber?
The hell's a pound sign? So I always think that a good starting Ventru character concept is you are embraced just to make the things go. because this guy's been around since the fall of Rome and hasn't really kept up with the times. So those are the big 7. You can have a couple more holdovers. There's Kai-Tiff. I never find Kai-Tiff very interesting, but they are like a cornerstone of the setting, which is you don't know who your dad is. You don't know who your mom is. You don't know who your dad is. Someone embraced you once and you don't know why. Again, even guess it's a Bruja or a Toreador.
Right.
By the way, you probably have a level in presence.
And I don't know if we mentioned this, but each clan has their own weakness as well.
Yes. Yep.
So that's when we keep saying that Toreador are kind of these Ponzi artists because they're obsessed with beauty and they get distracted by it. Yeah, and Nosferatu literally transform into monsters. They look like Count Orlok. Right. And Malkavians, something in their blood drives them to be... I don't know what the politically correct term would be anymore, but they're mad. They have been driven mad. Ventru have feeding restrictions and stuff like that. And Kai-Tiff, something happened where they don't have a clan weakness either. They just also don't have... You're just kind of left out there for whatever reason.
Because no one claimed you. And even though it shouldn't work like that, right. It's not exactly genetics either, but there's kind of a supernatural claimingness that happens. So until someone comes forward and is just kind of like, hey, son, you're actually a Toreador this whole time. Now you, too, can probably die watching a sunrise if you stayed up too late. They each have these kind of weaknesses, and they each kind of have different disciplines that come with their bloodline, which are the cool supernatural powers they can do. And mix and match and collect them all, because all of them are pretty good. Like, early on, you're going to think, like, I want to have potence because it's supernatural strength and I can just punch down walls. I want to be supernaturally fast because I can take 6 actions a turn. Or if you were me at dirtbag age, I want to have Protean 5 because I can turn into a mist and wolves and bats and stuff, and no one can hold me down. But literally, a single level in any power makes you so far beyond what normal people can do. Also, you can all get strength and speed and stuff like that because you're vampires too. But like, later on, dominate's cool, but presence is cooler to me. Anyone can crush heads with potence. I want Ospe. I want to be able to read entire crowds and then start manipulating those crowds. Or find out the person who's having a bad time and go over to console them in the corner of this dark bar. Don't worry about it. They're fine. They'll wake up fine. But yeah, like any of the powers are really super good. Like it's easy to be drawn to the big flashy cool ones, but literally any power is pretty cool. Why does everybody take Path of Flame? Because that's stupid. Sorry. But so the Camarilla are...
You're not talking about someone in particular?
No. The Camarilla are kind of... It would be easy to call them the good guys. They are not. They are the status quo. They are... they are better than the Sabbat on average. That is about as good as you can say. Because again, going back to earlier in this conversation, you're all monsters. You're all predators. That you guys, like, still dress in suits and hold like Sunday cotillions so that you can all put on like the mask of civilization and all. That's cute. You're monsters. All of you are monsters. That Ventru's feeding restriction is sick, if we're being honest. And that's it. Now you're at the Monsters Ball. If you're playing your average game, you're playing a Camarilla member, so you're going to these kinds of things where you're all pretending to like each other, but you don't, and you're all scared of each other, and you all hate each other, and you're all trying to get one up on each other. All right, so that's the Camarilla. Again, they're kind of like, they're very much based on kind of like old senatorial. There's a prince, there's a seneschal, there's a sheriff. There's kind of like these specific roles. Your eldest member of your clan is probably your primogen, so they kind of represent you in the Senate. So if you have concerns, if you have Toreador concerns, you go to your representative to be like, hey, we're getting shouldered out by the Bruja in this area. Can you go and tell them to knock it off? All with this veneer of society on it, where it's just a bunch of lions dressed in Sunday best. The Sabbat have a bunch of weird religious rites around being a vampire, but they do control cities and territories and roughly well. But if your city is known for being a shithole, chances are the World of Darkness branded it a Sabbat city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Detroit.
Detroit, Pittsburgh,
Mexico
Philadelphia,
City.
yeah, Mexico City. And then anarchs really aren't a political movement. They're as much a rejection of it, but much like everyone who holds that philosophy, they are also full of shit, libertarians. And so they do have states. They have the free states, which are California, Oregon, and Washington, I think. So and they're just kind of like, hey, do whatever, man. Don't fuck it up for everybody, right? They still have it. You know, they're the anarchists who immediately realize that anarchy is only so good, especially when you're controlling a bunch of vampires. So you're going to have some rule.
Yeah, they still widely adhere to the masquerade. Like
yeah. And then there's these independent clans, and they're just the coolest. And again, they got together and were like, yeah, we don't see ourselves doing that. And some each for their own individual reasons. So you have the Assamites or the Hackamites. I always like calling them the Hackamites once they got that. Once they got woker about who the Assamites were. Because if you're like, hey, boy, I'll bet you they were first presented in like 1994 as just being terrorists, you are probably right. And then people read a book, and then they read a second book, and then they were like, oh, actually, like, there is no part of, southern Spain or the entire Byzantine stretch of Europe that probably wasn't the Assamites at the time or whatever. So this idea that, oh, they have scholars and they have wizards and they have viziers and they have all, like, they are an entire, like, they are 4 clans in one, basically. That's how rad they are. And the ones you see are the ones they want you to see. They're the weird, they're the assassins and the extremists or whatever.
Yeah, I love the and it's clearly retro kind of fixing the Assamites. But I absolutely love how it's just this great big scam, basically. It's just like, no, you're supposed to be scared of these people in particular. We tricked you into changing our clan weakness.
Yeah,
Like, we never, like, we're ahead of you because we're not playing your stupid bullshit game. But if you pay us, we'll help you play your stupid bullshit game.
100%. Yeah, we are independent.
Yeah.
We are above it. How much to kill that guy? Yeah. No, I'm asking you right now. I will take offers. And then they take their blood, but they don't drink their blood, and they put it in this big, like, weird orrery of blood. Like, oh my god, it's fucking great. Everything they do is rad.
I love the Assamites.
They are truly great. And they have this whole, like, they revere Hakim. So that's why they were totally against the Sabbat for the most part. They were like, absolutely not. Our elder is the best. Like, our elder fucking is rad. He's sleeping right now. He might be turning into stone. It's a little weird. We're not sure everything that's happening down there, but we know that he's cool. And when he comes back, he's going to be thirsty. So we're getting as much blood as we can. So he doesn't, when he wakes up, he doesn't eat all of us, because that was a problem with us for a while. So yeah, they're basically, they're North African, kind of Middle East, but into Turkey. Again, they absolutely the Byzantine stretch. The what was Spain called when they held the southern stretch of it? But anyway, their empires have risen and fallen, and before it was Constantinople. Thank you. It was theirs. So that's the Assamites. They literally started as, wouldn't it be rad if vampires also had assassins? And wouldn't it be even cooler if we dressed them in really ignorant dressing that made them basically the bad guys in Air Force One or whatever? And then you had the Setites, who are Northern African kind of Egyptian. Like, they just controlled Egypt. And they got to thinking that they were gods. And that they are the children of gods. No, they mean it. They're not vampires, you're vampires. And again, well, we went off on a riff on this earlier. We see how you're confused. No, absolutely. Everyone makes that mistake. No, you're vampires. We're the children of gods. Of one god in particular. Set, you might have heard of him. Oh, no, he knew Cain. Oh, yeah, your guy Cain, right? That's you guys come from him? That's cute. We come from a god, though. Yeah. So Cain, right, he was a person, and your god was like, don't do that anymore, Cain. He's like, oh, yeah, I guess I won't. But we come directly from a god. God of darkness, maybe you've heard of him. He's got this weird head that corresponds to no living animal. It's fine. And they're just scumbags. And they're scumbags because they don't think they're playing the same game as you while they play the exact same game as you and seem completely impervious to it. Speak of full of shit, which I cannot say enough. I love any game that is inherently hinged on being full of shit. Like, whatever you say you are is actually quite the opposite. But yeah, like they're world travelers, they procure artifacts. They're going to get you, what do you need? I'll get it for you. Because I'm not a vampire. I'm a children of God. I'll go get you. What do you want, a crystal skull or something? You want 3 or 4 of them? Yeah, dude, I got you. You want to fuck over the prince? Dude, what can I get you? Some kind of ancient dagger, probably fucks him up or whatever. Yeah, dude, I'll get it. You want a piece of the Holy Cross? Dude, I got 4 of them. 4 of them. Don't worry about it. So, yeah, like they're just these weird power brokers who just do favors and slowly get you, it's kind of the drug dealer first one's free thing, where they start doing you favors until you were in the hole to Setites. And you find out you've been in the hole to Setites the whole time. And any Setite can call in that favor. Hey, yeah, you remember my friend Jim did a bunch of shit for you? Yeah, I'm going to need to call that in, dog. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to need a whole bunch of shit. So I'm going to need some compromat on the new prince you installed, your boy, right? Yeah. He's probably got some dirt. You probably know about it because you helped him overthrow that last prince. I won't tell anybody. Don't worry about it. It's super cool with me. It's chill, man. I don't even know vampires. Anyway, you're going to get me some shit on him because now we control your prince. Don't worry about it. God, I love them. They're such scumbags. They're just the best. And again, the sheer audacity of them just being like, we're not vampires. It's so weird that you would say that.
No, we can't go out in the sun.
No, in fact, it hurts us extra for some reason.
I was going to say, it's extra bad. We get extra crispy.
That's all the more reason we're not vampires. It hurts us double. What are we, double vampires? I doubt it. So, oh my God, I love it. Get out of here. This kid. So that's the other ones. Then they're just the mafia. They're just the vampire mafia. But that would be too one-dimensional. They're also the vampire mafia who are a bunch of like necromancers who destroyed another clan. Because out of all the antediluvians, who's dead? Salat, Cappadocia, Lasombra, Jamishi, Original Bruja.
Maybe the Nosferatu, but that's a legend, right?
Oh yeah, no, that guy's out there. That guy's out there. So, yeah, those are the canonical ones. There's other ones like, well, yeah, no one's seen these guys in centuries. If they were walking around, you'd know.
Yeah, no one's seen Cain.
Yeah,
either.
Yeah.
Like,
but yeah, so at a certain, like the Venetian, like Silk Road, merchant families and whatever. This one merchant family who were super into necromancy. It always seems like the weirdest like wrinkle to them. They were super into necromancy, where there was this one clan that was just super into dead stuff. I don't know. They were goth well before it was goth, like ossuaries and things like that. They were like that was their whole aesthetic. And so, because like this will not be the only kind of mildly peacenik clan that just gets taken advantage of by a modern era. Like, so by the time these kind of merchant princes were just kind of like, cool, we do necromancy. You do necromancy? Neat. You should turn a couple of us into vampires. We'll study your necromancy, and then we'll eat you. Oh, is that not cool with you? Oh, well, we're the Giovanni. Hey, we're here now. So, I mean, again, speaking of they started as a stereotype, they're just the mob. They're just a bunch of cousin fucking omerta, they're the mob. They have since gone on to add a bunch of wrinkles to them, but they're still they cleave closest to being, they're still kind of the mob.
They're kind of the mob.
But again, there's like this.
But it is more interesting than that. Like
100%. It's hard to explain it in one go why they're more interesting than that. But yeah, because they're kind of the mob too.
Because I like the Giovanni a lot. But
yeah,
like, they're kind of the mob with necromancy.
But tying it back to like these Venetian merchant families, so they kind of grew up. They were advocating. They're not all like, La Familia or anything like that, but they still kind of draw on those kinds of things. They're not all related anymore. It used to be literally they were all last name Giovanni pretty much. Now they've diversified.
They have a couple subfamily, but a lot of them are still Giovanni. But it also includes like, well, if you marry into the family, then you're in Giovanni.
Yeah.
So that counts. It's not just I'm going to marry my cousin, and this I don't foresee any issues. 16
it's fine.
generations from now.
But and speak of, like, there's a bunch of cool things to that clan, and it's hard to get there in a thumbnail. But one of the things is they have an entire network. Like, their whole family's in on it. They can call people and get people shit done during the day. Can you get people shit done during the day? Yeah, good luck. We are way ahead of you people, and we move at the speed of, like, right now, because even though we've got the old heads back in, like, Venice or whatever, we've got new blood coming up all the time. We didn't need to embrace someone to teach us how to tweet. We've got, like, an entire, like, generation of the family that knows how to tweet. Like, yeah, they're very interesting. They didn't start so interesting, and they were probably the last clan I grew to appreciate in a lot of ways, because they're just kind of like, meh, I don't know, they're just kind of boring. It's weird, the necromancy thing. It's an interesting wrinkle. And then the Ravnos. The Ravnos. Yeah, the Ravnos took a long journey to get cool, because they were basically just kind of evil Gangrel, and that's being nice to them, because they were basically just a racial stereotype of Romani. Like, they all, like, how the Malkavians all have to develop some kind of derangement, and the Ventru developed some kind of feeding restriction. They all had to have some kind of crime they did. That's where it started, just to give you an idea of how cool it was. And then it became about vice, which, when they were still basically just Romani, still wasn't cool, but I guess it was cooler than they had to do crime. I guess that's better. And then they kind of looked at, like, literally the company was just kind of like, oh, you know, they're called the racial slur because people thought they were from Egypt. It turns out a lot of these people actually go back to, like, the Dalit class in India and whatever. So actually there's this whole half of the clan, much like the Assamites, which, again, anytime they retrofit something, it's always saying, no, they were cool in their area of the world the whole time. India's been run by the Ravnos for generations, and you just don't get to go to India because the Ravnos control it. Like, when the Ventru tried, right, they eventually got pushed out. Yeah, we all blame the Hunger Striker, but there was some power grabs going on behind the scenes in Vampire Land that got the British Raj the fuck out of there. You know, like, so, like, and they're not mostly, they don't mostly deal in that kind of politics, but they're not above it either. I really liked each clan got their best self when they put out the revised clan books of each clan, because they had ironed out the stereotypes, they had ironed out the kind of problematic issues, and then each clan immediately was the coolest clan, and you wanted to create 7 characters in that clan, like, tomorrow. But yeah, they started out really, yeah, that one took a long time. They, like, the Hakamites were way cooler than them, way earlier than them, because, again, they became this whole, like, oh, you're just falling for what the Hakamites want to do. You, like, the Ravnos were still just a nuisance. Now, they kind of folded that into, like, the racism against Romani, they folded into the Ravnos, where if a Ravnos comes to town, they get chased out of town immediately because no one wants to deal with them, right? And so they still turned that stereotype into, like, trying to address a real world concern. It wasn't great. Listen, we were all young. It was a different time.
It was a different time, but they did take steps to make it less yikes. Yes,
and I will say, and this is well before they were my bosses, so I have no skin in the game of defending them. Then they were always very responsive. If you told them they fucked up, they were like, "Ooh, explain how." Ooh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We're not supposed to call them that? Oh, shit. Okay. Yeah. We'll get back to that. We'll read some books. We'll diversify our author staff. We'll get some people who are interested and expert in some things, and we'll come back to you. The next time you see the Hakamites, they're not going to be weird. The next time you see the Giovanni, they're still going to be a little weird.
That's just what they are, everybody. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
We got no other layers.
We leaned into it. They are just, especially because they just took out a clan. And they're like, yeah, this is what we are now. Yeah, no. It's great. That's some lovely advice. Thank you very much. Shut the fuck up and go away. Okay, great. Yeah, you were surrounded, by the way, right now. I can also summon my dead aunt if you want. No, not vampire dead, like actual dead. Anyway, there's nobody in the family that stays dead for long. Am I right? Okay, all right, this guy's cool. He was just on his way, right? All right, cool. God. So, yeah, the Giovanni are fun.
They're fun. I think I like you said. It's one of those things where you read the lore and you think, oh man, all I want to do is make a gang roll, and you flip the page. Oh man, all I want to do is make a follower set.
Yeah. No, because and it's a testament to, and again, it's become too popular to shit on D&D. Sometimes they deserve it, but really it's because they're the big dog. For a while, White Wolf was the big dog, so it was popular to shit on them for a while too. They got to get away with kind of being cool punk aesthetic. They were kind of the young kids, so they got to float above a lot of it, but not all of it. Again, they became the ones to take down when it came to some of the racist bullshit that they were like putting out there in books and stuff like that. But in part because they also the D&D didn't really stress the writing, right? Like they had novels or whatever for that. This is still when 2.5 was the thing, right? Or in 2 and 2.5 or 3.5. Like it was crunch. You wanted 7 layers of crunch. I needed a skill for every fucking thing, which again, we haven't even talked about like the actual character sheet, how cool it is for White Wolf. But they went out and hired the best writers. They wanted to create this mood. They wanted every page to be dripping with description. They wanted you to not be able to stop imagining being a vampire from when the minute you crack the spine to the minute you put the book down. Everything added back into that motif. When you read about a clan, every line about them was radder than the previous line about them, and you had to create one right away. Then you turn the page, and now it's like, oh shit, now I want to be a Bruja. These guys are fucking rad. Are you kidding me? Like, the art's not doing anything for me because it's just like a street tough, but like I could play a philosopher king. And because they prioritized mood, they prioritized really getting in, the storytelling system. They called it that, right? It wasn't a role-playing game. Mm-hmm. Your dungeon master, your game master was a storyteller. Then you were all the players in the storytelling system, And it worked. The trappings of it worked. You never forgot that. And again, it is some of the best, most collaborative stories I've ever told because it really trains you to think of people, right? You're not thinking of, I'm a knight, I'm a good guy, I'm a good guy for my kingdom or something. I'm like, I don't know, some scumbag accountant, and I don't know how I got on this guy's radar, but I got on his radar, and now I'm a fucking vampire forever, and I didn't want to be, and I don't like it, and I'm terrified every fucking night of my life. But this is my job now, and because you each had something you were doing, and again, you could conspire together. It's not like, it's not always an anti-social social game. You could certainly have common goals. You could try and overthrow the prince is probably the most common one of from the elevator pitch. Or you could just be trying to survive together. You could just genuinely like each other. You were all embraced around the same time. You formed a bond. And now, it's been 30 years, but you actually try and not fuck each other over too much, And actually, it looks like you're getting a lot of holdings. Remember that guy who pushed us around 30 years ago? We probably have the clout to push him around now, So you don't need to be bastards to each other, but oh my God. You're going to be bastards to each other, and it's great. But yeah, and because you each have your own agendas, usually, right? Like, there's going to be a certain point in the night where you guys all got together. You met at Elysium. It's kind of a peace treaty area. Everyone got together. They discussed the business of the day. Your storyteller probably planted the story seed that you guys are going to be pursuing an episode from now, if you know it or not. But then at the end of the night, it's like, okay, what do all of you do after that? And a lot of you are going to be like, oh, I've got to go. I got to go lean on my union reps. I got to collect my bag money. I got to do this, that, and the other thing. So then all of you go your separate ways, and now you're telling 4 stories or 5 stories again or something like that. And the thing that I will always – it's not for everybody, again, but the thing that I gained an appreciation for it is it makes you a fan of your other players. Be there. Don't get on your phone. Don't – you can sketch or something. You can busy your hands or whatever because I've got too much manic energy. But become a fan of the other players. Watch their story. Get involved in their thing. When they're like, oh, I'm actually going to screw you over, by the way, to try and tune out of the scene. It's like, no, I'm paying every fucking attention to what you're doing, dude. This sucks. And it's awesome. I can't wait for this to bite me in the ass. So you can, like, yeah, it really behooves you to let go your own ego a little bit and buy in. Like, whatever you're doing, is the raddest thing. Even if it's not the raddest thing, there's still make room for it, because not everyone's going to play at the same levels or whatever either. So just kind of be like, what you're doing is cool. Like, and I want to be there for it, or I want to be there when it blows up in your face because you have not thought this through at all. So yeah, I think again, it's not for everybody. It doesn't work as well on streams, just kind of logistically. I think it can, but it doesn't work as well on streams. When you have, back when we were teenage dirtbags, we could play for 8 hours at a time. So spending an hour watching Keith go off and do Keith's thing, and that's what we're all doing right now. Well, that hour doesn't feel as much of a lend as if you've got 2 hours to do the stream in,
right.
And one of those hours is going to one person. Yeah, that's always going to feel a little. And even if you're there for it, it's still going to feel a little like, well, I could have not been on this episode. Actually, could have done that.
But then, sorry, and to get my streamer brain around it. But then, do you do something where it's like, okay, you play every month, you play 2 hours where you're all in Elysium, you're all talking, and then every other week it's okay, you get an hour-long episode. It's just you and the storyteller.
Sure.
And then, next week it's just you and it's just the next player and the storyteller.
I mean, yeah, actually, that's got something to it. But
if that interests you, send me a message.
And again, they would find a way to realize that having a bunch of apex predators who were naturally one bad willpower roll away from being at each other's throats kind of all the time. Like, again, sometimes you couldn't control it. Was not the best group activity. It was a really cool story and a really cool way to spend an afternoon if you were into it. And that's when they started designing their stories to be a little bit more built around the social unit. And again, Werewolf introduces packs. Mage doesn't really work in some ways. Werewolf just adds more character creation bits, which is obviously the part I'm most geeked about. Mage was much more a system-based game. The feature there was the cool magic system they had developed, and it didn't leave as much room to be a super cool mage, in my opinion. And maybe I was just engaging with it wrong. It's funny, because once The Matrix came out, we were like, that's how we were supposed to be playing Mage this whole time. That was Mage. We just watched Mage. Let's go back and start a Mage game, because actually now we kind of get a cooler way to play Mage. Yeah. Oh, Wraith, the Unplayable, beautiful game. So yeah, and Wraith started to set our temperature, because eventually, Andy, we were talking about this before the stream, but eventually we stopped wanting to play vampires. We wanted to play people who vampires terrorized. We started wanting to play the people in the World of Darkness because it was so much of an interesting angle. You're so outgunned so early. And what's more horrific than that? You don't know what's in the shower or also the shower. The shadows is what I meant, but there's shadows in the shower sometimes. Turn the light on. Huh? But so Wraith comes out and you play a person who's dead now. That's it. The duality, there is no duality. You're a dead person. Who were you in life? Well, I guess you're a that person. I don't know what to tell you. But so then you built in things that were unresolved of I never told my daughter where I buried the watch, or whatever. I never did this, that, or the other thing. So there were things that then you had to try and interact with the world, which is fucking super difficult. More powerful ghosts would come by and try and turn you into furniture and stuff because they turned soul stuff into other stuff. What? Yeah, it was a really weird setting that never had its own it was really hard to build a mythology there. They didn't have Camarillas and Sabbats or werewolf tribes and septs and things. It didn't have mage traditions. You were just a dead guy now. Good luck, because there's a cart coming by to collect you and turn you into coins. But the coolest thing there is you created one dead person, and the things you left unresolved are the things you still wanted, which is why you weren't passing on. You lived in this whole shadow world beside ours. You didn't walk around touching stuff. You weren't just unseen in the real world. You live in this shadowy oblivion. Kind of the Wraith world from Lord of the Rings several years later. But the duality there was someone else played your darkness. Someone else played your nobody or your heartless, basically. So when you started to get desperate or things started to get bad or your vice or whatever was triggered, right? If you were scared, the more scared you got, the more another player at the table is just kind of you've never been nothing, man. You're nothing. You may as well let them turn you into a chair. What the fuck are you even doing out here? It was the most insane and insidious thing, and it's unplayable. It's unplayable, and it's the most brilliant thing I've ever wanted to play, and just could never make it work. Again, you need a group you can trust implicitly, because you need to trust that they're not fucking over your character. That every time they're just kind of like, you're nothing, man. You're nothing. Like they're not talking to you personally, A. And B, they are using your character against you. So they need to know your character as well as you do in a certain way. Like it's so highfalutin. It's so high-minded, and it's fucking unplayable. And I love it. I love it. We've got exactly like 2 sessions in independently of each other, and it was unplayable. It was changing the dreaming eventually. That sucked. I am not a fan of that game. There's many people's favorites, so do not let my opinion taint yours.
And you like the New World of Darkness, Changeling, a lot.
Changeling the Lost is fucking amazing.
Yeah,
is amazing. And we'll get into some NWAD stuff eventually, because I do want to talk about, because again, they started and coming out of Changeling, they started like getting super into their metafiction, where they're like, well, listen, we've actually built some apocalypse into each of these games. One of them's literally called the Apocalypse. Like, we've built some end time into each of these games. It just became a good framework to build your game around. Is there something that you're afraid of that might come? What if we triggered all of them at once? And so metafictionally, they did that. Vampires Gehenna was coming. All their old ones were waking back up. Vampires Apocalypse, like the whole world's gone to shit. That's everything we've been afraid of. Like, here it is. All the mages were just like, oh, fuck, at once. I don't know. Changelings got sad or something. The Wraith underworld literally exploded, pushing all those Wraiths back onto Earth, so now they're zombies, which were then the inciting villains for your hunters to be awakened, because there's just the dead rising again, and all of a sudden you're there one day and the zombie walks past, and something in your brain, you see a weird symbol, which is angelic script, it turns out. Spoilers. You see some angelic script and you're just kind of like, I have to put all these things back in the ground now. It looks like that's what I'm doing. Like, and your wife doesn't understand you have to go out zombie murdering. Are you kidding me? Because you're just a dude. You're a dude with a glowing crowbar.
Hey, I glowing crowbar well.
Baby, you glowing crowbar better than anyone I've ever known. But you've got a family. Yeah, so that became, like, that was a whole different personal horror, because no one believes you, Frank. No one else sees the ghost. You're the only one, and you sound like a lunatic right now. And your buddy over there is cutting himself. Why is he doing that? He gets more strength if he does it. All right, it sounds crazy, Bill. I hear myself. But I have to do this. I have to beat these zombies up. And then the crowning achievement was Demon the Fallen, which once they spirit nuked the original Ravnos Antediluvian, because the mage technocracy was just kind of like, well, we can't have this. Nope. They spirit nuked him, which blew up Oblivion, which is probably where Lasombra had been hiding this whole time, and also freed all the demons. And just a preview, because if anything, I want to talk about Werewolf next. So I don't know. We should talk about whether or not we want to try and create a character, or if we just want to keep rambling.
We have about 20 minutes left, so yeah. We could probably build a character in 20 minutes, or I'm good for you to just keep going and talking, whatever feels right to you.
Well, I want to, and we can figure out what our main topic will be next time. But let me kind of get through, because the cool thing about Vampire, right, is you create a person who you were at some point in time, and then the vampire that you are or have become. And it's great. You immediately are creating 2 different characters. Werewolf, you have who you were born as, which could be a wolf, by the way. You could literally be a wolf-born thing. So you could just, if you wanted to go that way, if you have furry tendencies or something like that, there's your game. But you're born a person who may or may not know they're a werewolf. In fact, you probably don't. That makes the whole body horror changing part of it. But then you're picked up by these tribes of werewolves who you are genetically related to. It's just kind of like, oh, good, you changed? Cool, we need another one. So they come getting you, and that's terrifying, because now all of a sudden your body's changing, right? It's puberty writ large, as any good werewolf story is. You exploded into this giant fur monster, and then other giant fur monsters are coming like, oh, cool, yeah, you're good, man. No, it's fine. What'd you do, eat your dad? Whatever, like, we haven't done that. It's fine. It wasn't even your real dad, don't worry about it. And you have a phase of the moon that dictates your role in society, and you don't even have to be good at it. Like, so you have the person that you were before the change, you have this tribe, which is literally like your genetic predisposition. They're roughly tied to kind of like, you know, not Storm Shadows. That's a ninja from G.I. Joe. But like Silver Fangs are kind of aristocratic. Like they're based on kind of types of wolves too, breeds of wolves. So you're kind of like, you know, kind of Anglo, you know, northern France kind of wolves. You know, and they're your aristocratic. Like they found that these kind of archetypes really suited them, so they just expanded them across. I think there's 13 werewolf tribes too, if I'm remembering correctly. They found it was a pretty good base where you could give someone their favorite. You know, get a Fenris, you're probably like all Nordic. You know, and you think you're a bunch of hard asses. You got way too many tattoos. So, and then you have your phase of the moon. And the phase of the moon is the new moons are questioners, the theurgers are the spiritualists, the Philodax, the split moon, the half moons are your philosopher or your leaders, your judges, right? They're the ones who make your decisions for you. If two of you can't agree, they're going to come in and be like, all right, well, both of you knock it off. We're going to cut the baby in half. Your Galliards are kind of like your battle bards, and then your Ahruns are your warriors, right? They're your just rip snort. They get all the cool powers, warriors. But then, like, okay, so the Ragabash are the questioners. All right, well, what are you questioning? Your entire society is built on violence and rage. Like, some of you, like, religiously follow this stuff. So if you're in one of these ragier clans, isn't your job to question that, to kind of be a peacenik? Like, isn't that kind of your role? Or, you know, if you're the all-female badass clan, or tribe, if anyone was wondering which one my favorite was, like, what if you're just kind of like, I don't know, maybe I'm an MRA guy now. You know, like, maybe we shouldn't kill all of our boys whenever they're born? That feels weird. Does that feel weird to anybody else? No? Okay. From a lot of looks I'm getting, no. That's not weird to everybody else. You know, there's the tree-hugging Children of Gaia hippie types. Well, what's their warrior like? You know, like, they still get all the warrior powers, but, like, are they using it for, like, just causes? Are they using it to be, like, a rabble-rouser? Like, are they getting out there and or are they eco-terrorists? You know, are they tree-hugging so hard they're going to take down all you motherfuckers? So, it immediately added this extra wrinkle, which I just think was just the raddest. Now, again, they kind of shrink back in, because Mage is more of a system thing. It's so much more metaphysical. Mage is rad, by the way. It's just tough to get a handle on. And if you're playing Mage, you're playing Mage. Your Mage is, like, you can play werewolves in a vampire game or vampires in a... Wait, you can always find a way to twist it. Mages is tough. As a storyteller, you have to explain to me why you have to play a mage right now. Like, why are you doing this to me? I have to learn the fucking magic system all over again because it's complicated. Like, and you can do whatever. You can bend everyone into fucking atoms. Can you not? Can you play a vampire instead?
Some vampires have magic. Just be one of them.
Yeah, just be one of them. It's all weird alchemy and shit. It's fine. So what if nobody likes you? But yeah, so if you're playing Mage, you're probably playing Mage. Changeling, there's really no crossover ability. And again, my bias is clear. I do not like Changeling, the bad one. So then Hunter they were like, what if we just trigger all of our apocalypses and all of our ends of the world at one time? And so then there's these people who are on the street who basically are being chosen or touched by something that tells them, get a crowbar and kill that thing. It's probably bad, right? And so you've got to kill that thing and probably go to work tomorrow. Like, and it's not cool, man. It's not cool. So, and that was a great story. Like, that whole game line is a lot of fun because you are all monsters. You're just on the opposite side of the monsters. Like, no hunter is, on average, better than a vampire in some of the shit they get up to. But, like, you're supposed to close your mind. Like, if you've been a lifelong White Wolf player by now or World of Darkness player, now you're fighting all the characters that you've already been, basically. You're just kind of like, oh, man, I was that vampire. That guy was cool. Like, that Gangrel meant no harm to any of us, if we were being honest. And we just ran him over with a car and cut him up with a chainsaw. Humans are the real monsters, aren't they? And then, so then they were just kind of like, peace to resistance, fucking demons. Demons now. Yeah. No, you heard us. Hey, remember that first game we created? Vampire? Yeah, Cain. We said Cain was real, and God came down and personally was just like, Cain, you shouldn't have done that. Fucked up, son. Now you're going to be around forever. So we've established God. We've already kind of put on the table and has been there the whole time. The Abramic faiths were right. Like, we should probably allow for the room that others might be right too, but no, we've already put our money on Abramic. So yeah, guess what? So we're going to go do the whole fall thing. There are angels and there were demons, and the demons went to war with heaven, and they fell, and they were all there since creation, and they all got stuck in a prison for the last however many years until someone had to go and spirit nuke it. And my very favorite, Andrew, because I am all angels and demons at the waz. Like, if you want me to spend another 2 hours talking to you about like Catholic and Jewish like angel and demonology and stuff like that, I can do it. Yeah, I can do it.
That Dan Brown novel, you love it.
Andrew, we're making friends. We're making friends. Sorry. The name of the show.
You're not a noted symbologist, whatever that is.
It's a real word, says Dan Brown. So no, that is already my jam. That is my jam. I came pre-jammed with all the angels and demon stuff in the world. Love it. I love the fall myth. Love, just, we don't have time. So with werewolf, or with vampire, you create a person who becomes a vampire, and you can play with thousands of years of history if you want it. Werewolf, you play a person who enters a tribe which has a bunch of cultural expectations on you, and then you have a role in that society all of a sudden. And even then, you probably have something that your local sept is up to, too. So you got a bunch of things pulling at you, and you try and navigate it. Demon, you've been around since literal creation. Like, when God needed people to build this thing he was thinking about, he made all of you up to go do those things he was thinking about. So, like, first things first, or maybe not first things first, you get back into it, but so one of the things, you're going to create who you were at creation. What was your role in building the world as we know it? Then, you eventually joined with Lucifer, and were like, well, we're not doing that, so I'm falling. I'm on this guy's side. I think it's not cool that I had to do all that stuff. I was painting sunsets for 1,000 years, and I'm not into it anymore. So now I was a marshal in the armies of Lucifer. And maybe you regret it. You can still be that guy who's just kind of like, oh boy, I really miss heaven. That was cool. I've been in a prison, a darkness prison, where I wasn't allowed to experience anything for 1,000 years, and I'm starting to think I backed the wrong guy.
Maybe sunsets weren't that bad.
But because the world can't take your demonness anymore, you've been imprisoned for a reason, and the physical world no longer has space for you. Like, you rose and fell before like the laws of physics were settled. So the universe can't take you, so you inhabit a dead person. So now you are creating the person who died for your angel demon to take over, and now you are playing the person that this dead person angel demon is now. It is 4 tiers of awesome. Like, it is the most, like, just so many moving parts. And again, you can get really basic with it. Don't let it intimidate you. I actually think it was completely plausible. But the idea of being like Sarah, when she played, she was like, I'm the one who put horns on prey animals because I thought it wasn't fair that they didn't have a chance to defend themselves. And so then when Lucifer fell, that natural unfairness that I saw in the universe was kind of like, well, yeah, wait, God was just going to not give him horns? That's not cool. I think Lucifer's onto something here. I think we should probably all fall. And then they an exotic animal fighter guy, who got like exotic animals to fight, like died, like choked on a chicken bone or something like that. And now this demon who is free from the abyss entered this person's body, where now they had this whole like, oh my God. That's just one example. You're the person who put horns on animals. What was that like? What were you thinking during that time? Keith created a character that was the one who hid gemstones, like kind of compressed gems, and so they were always now still like very mineral focused and very like it is high metaphysics. Like, so it's not nearly as accessible. Vampire will always be my favorite in a way because it's just the most terrestrial and palpable and has the most like things going for it. Werewolf's rad. Mage, if you set aside time for it, is rad. But as far as I'm concerned, the most brilliant character creation system that they've ever put in place is Demon the Fallen, because you create 6 characters before you get to play 1. It's amazing. It's amazing. All right, well, now we have 8 minutes. All right. Well, let's look at a character sheet.
Okay.
So that next time we can maybe get into like actually creating some characters or something. But all right. So again, and maybe next time we can even use my cheat sheet. I'll kind of actually read off. But at a glance, before we sign off, because I didn't even get to talk about how awesome I think the actual character creation, the actual mechanics of the character creation system work. But it's concept first. You really need to know what you want to play. And you might not even have a vampire clan in mind at first. You're not likely to be like, I want to be a Bruja tough. You might start there, but you can also just kind of be like, oh, I think I was this guy, that guy. You know what? I think this could be a Toreador or a Ventrue. Does anybody else have any feelings? You can really go about it a bunch of different ways.
You mentioned earlier a scumbag accountant, and
yes.
really, scumbag accountant, any clan, that's fascinating. And they'd be totally different characters in any clan, but yeah. Think what would the Assamites need with a scumbag accountant? X, Y, and Z. What are the Bruja, the followers of Set? You just go through the line, and they're all going to need scumbag accountants.
Everybody got money. Money makes the world move. So you want to start with a concept, and then I'd kind of move on from there. I'd come back to the rest of the stuff, because that's kind of like peppering it. Unless you know what kind of clan you want to play or something like that. But, all right, so the first line there is attributes. And you basically pick a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary. You're going to spend a set amount of points in the one. You want to be a physical first, you want to be a social second, and you're okay with being a little bit of a dummy. And even then, you're probably not a dummy, but you're just not. That's not going to be your strong suit. Or you could be a mental giant, and or a social giant. And again, this system, better than any other I've seen, you can slay with social skills where someone physically has to come at you directly. Well, we're in a public place, dude. You can't just vampire out at me. Meanwhile, I can turn everyone here against you. Are you fucking kidding me right now, you dunce? There is no better system for that kind of whatever's on your sheet. If you can look at your sheet and be like, oh, yeah, fuck you. I'm about to take you down with Streetwise, son. Watch me. You can do it. It's so versatile that way. So you basically choose a first, a second, and a third kind of way that you want to prioritize your points. And I forget, it's 7, 5, and 3?
I think it's 7,
Does that
5,
sound
and 3.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I think it might be at the bottom of the sheet.
Probably. Yeah, 7, 5, 3.
Yep.
Bam. So then you move down to abilities, right? Your attributes are the things you're naturally born with, or things that you hone. It takes a lot of effort to make those things happen. Once you get to a certain level of strength, you're probably going to stay roughly about there. So then there's talent, skills, and knowledges. These are things you acquire. These are things you put thought and effort into diversifying your person, your character, you individually. If you're reading a bunch of history books, you might have points in history or whatever. So again, you do the primary, secondary, and tertiary, and I just saw it. You get 13. Oh, it's worth noting that except for one exception in the initial game, you automatically come spotted with 1 point in each of the attributes, because it's pretty impossible. You're not completely infirmed. You can take merits and flaws and stuff like that to become infirmed if that was interesting to you. In fact, well before a lot of other games got into different ableisms. I think for all the other things they were fucking up early, they were pretty good with stuff like that early. And Nosferatu naturally come with a 0 appearance. That's their flaw. Your body actually becomes racked and physically twisted. But talent, skills, and knowledges, you don't get an automatic point. You have to invest each point. So you get more of them to spend. And so you get 13, 9, and 5. So you say I want to do talents first, skills second, knowledges last. I'll spend 13 points in talents, 9 points in skills, and 5 points left for knowledges. Your rolls, right? In order to do things, you're going to roll, and it's dice pools, so similar to Star Wars. Mm-hmm. It's all D10s, but you will take as many D10s as you have. There they are. So you want to run, it's strength plus athletics, for instance. So you take as many, if you have a 3 strength and a 2 athletics, you have 5 dice to roll to meet your strength athletics. Eventually, I think they just set the difficulty, but for a while, you would also set the difficulty. Look, you're not running away from anything, so it's just a 5. However many things above 5 you get, those are successes, and any 1s eat successes. So any ones you roll take away some of the successes, and that averages out to what your success is. Eventually, well down the road, they realized that actually gave you an equal chance to fail, and so they changed the rules to fail like that. But that's a story for another time. Right now, I just want to make sure we overview a little bit of what the character sheet's saying. All right, so then disciplines are going to come from whatever clan we chose. If we've already got one in mind, we might have an idea in mind of, Bruja are super fast, super strong, and have a commanding presence. So you might be like, I want to be the commanding presence guy. That sounds rad. Or I want to have a little bit of commanding presence, but I really want to be a strong guy. I want to be a tough guy. So you might already have that, and you have 3 points in disciplines to spend initially. You're a baby vampire usually. Backgrounds are less tangible things. They're like the amount of money you have. They're the amount of supernatural blood potency you have. They're the amount of like friends and allies you have that you can command and call upon. You might have a herd. You have a cultivated you're the leader of this band. You can feed from the band whenever you want because they're riding your coattails, so they kind of owe you. Stuff like that. It's more abstract things than just I'm good at performing. I can punch things real good. It's other stuff that you can draw on as advantages. The virtues are kind of their own bag, but you can basically, this is the level of conscience or self-control I have, how courageous I can be. And remember that thing I was talking about earlier, the thing that's rattling the cage inside of you, the beast. In order to resist that beast telling you what you're going to do right now, you roll them. It's just kind of like, hey, kill all of these kids. And you're like, I have a conscience. I am not going to do that. I'm going to roll my conscience and hopefully succeed because I really don't feel like doing that. And even if you fail that roll, you can spend willpower, by the way. So 2 of these added together equals your willpower. Or 2 of them added together. No, yeah, 2 of them added together is your humanity. Mm-hmm. Courage is your willpower, I think. It's not going to tell me that at the bottom, but
no.
I'm sure that's on my list. And so you've just created a person. And it's actually a pretty good people simulator. Again, we just started playing people eventually because we were more interested in that. And it's a pretty good people simulator. You just don't get any supernatural powers out of the bargain. And this is a pretty decent, the conscience, conviction, self-control, and stuff like that. People need them. People call on them. People fail at those things. So, and even humanity isn't a bad system, except when you're human, you're probably mostly human, you presume. And then you get freebie points. So even if you're kind of like, I only, knowledge is the thing I wanted least of, but I wanted to be an academic. I wanted to have more points in academics, or I wanted to understand some politics because, my background, I kind of saw myself as running for public office and then became, the kind of person who's always involved. So I was a paper chaser for, you decide you want some more points. Well, you can spend freebie points to bolster up those skills where you're kind of like, I could actually sprinkle in a little bit more here. Attributes are very expensive with freebie points. Abilities are a little cheaper. Disciplines are very expensive. They want you to kind of be handcuffed down to reasonable powers. But if you want, you can spend fairly easily to get a 5 in a discipline first thing. You will spend all of your points on getting a 5 in that discipline. Yeah. But
and that's the only one you'll be able to use.
That is the only one you'll be able to use. You will not be that diverse, but you will be rad as shit in that one thing. And so a too long story too short there. That is roughly what the steps you go through in the character sheet. And maybe next time we can A, make a friend, and B, actually go through what some of these skills are. Because again, the way that 3.5, which was kind of the rage at this time, that was the state of D&D around this time, or 3. And Palladium Games was out there, and they just had call it Cthulhu, Chaosium system. You had a skill for everything. And here they really have kind of skill families. You're alert, you're athletic, you're aware. They really boiled it down so that you could put some points in something and be roughly competent in the thing you want to be good at pretty quickly without having to break it down into, I can spot traps and use ropes and I can ride a horse. If you wanted that, you could take Animal Can or Drive or whatever, and that would count. So, thank you for having me, Andy.
Of course. And next time we'll talk about all this stuff. Yeah, we didn't even get to talk about disciplines, really. We talked about some of the basic stuff. Some of them are real weird, though.
Mm-hmm. All that flesh and bone peeling off stuff.
That's one of them. Necromancy. That's a whole magic system.
Yeah.
blood magic.
There is a whole magic system.
There's several. Yeah, because there's necromancy, thaumaturgy, coldonic sorcery.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I think one or two of the paths might have some weird rituals you can do. There's rituals. There's all kinds of rituals, which some of them are more to different things. So yeah, there's. Do you like blood magic? Do you like blood sugar sex magic? You can probably do it.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
Is there anything you would like to outro or plug, Marty?
No, just thanks. I was having a real bad day, and you just let me geek out about one of my very favoriteest things. So thank you for doing that. That I got to use a bunch of knowledge that I haven't gotten to use in forever. So
I'm happy to give you that outlet.
Yeah.
Let's see. The world. You're all living in it, so you know what it's like. It's not very fun right now.
It's a world of darkness.
So in some way, some might say it is a world of darkness, and maybe all of the apocalypses are happening right now. Maybe some mages blew up the Oblivion or whatever that was.
Very plausible.
There is a pandemic going on. I know our president has said you're tired of it. You are. I'm sure you are tired of it. That doesn't mean it's not real, though. So please be safe. Please wear a mask. Please be kind to each other. Please vote if you can in person, and if not, might I suggest dropping off your ballot early. That's it. Wear a mask, wash your hands, be kind to each other, and we love all of you in this world of darkness.
Of darkness.
My only friend is the road.
Get a second friend.
Oh, wow, I feel called out.
How are we going to play this game with us? Your only friend's the road? I'm not playing the road, Andy.
Really breaking my immersion and hurting my feelings, Marty.
Guess we didn't make a friend after all.
No. The true adventure was the friend we made along the way.
Which is the road?
Which is the road.
Good.
And midnight, maybe. Have a good night, everybody. And join us next week when we'll do more of this, because it's spooky.
Yeah, we'll do something spoopy,
and it truly is a world of darkness.
World of darkness.
Bye.